In the rocky plains of Kidepo Valley in northern Uganda, something is moving. Heavy, slow, and completely unconcerned. This animal is aware of everything around it, but it does not care about any of it, because it does not need to. In these lands, at this size, beneath this armor, the concept of threat works very differently. More accurately, it almost does not exist at all. The white rhinoceros, by its Latin name, Ceratotherium, one of the largest land mammals on Earth. But that description is not enough to explain it, because to truly understand this animal, you first need to understand what its body really is. Let us start with the physical structure. An adult male white rhinoceros can reach up to 2,300 kilograms, 2.5 tons. To make that weight more concrete, consider this. A mid-sized car weighs around 1,400 kilograms. That means this animal weighs about 1.5 times as much as an average car. But unlike that car, this massive body stands on 4 legs, can change direction suddenly, can accelerate, and when necessary, can reach a speed of exactly 50 kilometers per hour. 2.5 tons and 50 kilometers per hour. Keep that combination in your mind, because those two numbers summarize everything about this animal's physical power. Now, let us talk about the skin. The skin of a white rhinoceros can become as thick as 5 centimeters. On paper, that number may seem ordinary, but think about what it means in practice. The teeth of most predators cannot penetrate this skin. Even lion claws struggle to leave marks on its surface. This skin is, in every sense, biological armor, and beneath that armor lies an extremely dense mass of muscle. The muscle buildup around the shoulder area is so pronounced that, from the side, the rhinoceros almost looks like a wedge, narrowing from front to back, close to the ground with a low center of gravity. This structure is optimized for both speed and unshakable balance. Now to the horn. The front horn of a white rhinoceros can exceed 90 centimeters, and in some cases, pass 150 centimeters. This structure is not made of bone, but of compressed protein fibers called keratin, the same material found in our nails and hair, but the mechanical strength of this horn is extremely high. It can force thick tree trunks, dig through rocky ground, and in a confrontation with a rival, it becomes a terrifying tool of force transfer. And this horn sends the clearest message to everything around this animal. That message is simple. Do not come near me. The structure of the feet is also critical to understanding this power. Each foot has 3 toes, and on each toe there is a thick, rounded, and wide hoof structure. This broad base spreads 2,300 kilograms of weight across a much larger surface area. As a result, the pressure applied to the ground with every step is reduced, and this giant can move forward without sinking, even in muddy or soft terrain. An artificial object of the same weight would almost certainly become stuck in that ground. Now we need to look at the sensory system of the white rhinoceros, because this is the most misunderstood part of this animal. Its vision is weak. That is true. It is known that it cannot clearly see objects beyond about 30 meters, but this weakness is more than compensated for by the extraordinary development of its other 2 senses. Let us start with the sense of smell. The nasal cavity of the white rhinoceros takes up a massive portion of its skull. This large surface area gives it an incredible ability to detect scent. Research shows that rhinoceroses can detect smells from as far as 1.5 kilometers away, and this detection is not limited to danger. It also includes water sources, the presence of other individuals, and territorial markers. In other words, this animal fills in everything it cannot see with its sense of smell. Its visual range may be limited to only 30 meters, but its scent range reaches a full 1,500 meters. In practice, this balance makes the rhinoceros far less vulnerable than most people imagine. The ears tell a completely different story. The ears of a white rhinoceros can move completely independently from one another. Each ear turns in a different direction, performing a full 360-degree acoustic scan. This system is a perfect mechanism that compensates for the lack of vision through sound. An approaching threat, the faint sound waves carried by the wind, or the sound of distant water. All of it is processed separately by these ears, and this process never stops. It remains active even while resting. Now, let us focus on the physics of an attack. 2,300 kilograms of weight and a speed of 50 kilometers per hour. The kinetic energy calculated from these 2 values is extraordinarily high. To compare this energy to something concrete, the impact is close to the force created when a train car strikes an object at moderate speed. And this enormous force is transferred through the horn into a single point, not across a wide surface, but through a sharp point of focus. This is what makes a rhinoceros attack mechanically different from the attack of any other large mammal. So how often does this animal actually use such terrifying power? The answer may surprise you. Rarely, white rhinoceroses are largely calm animals. When they do not feel threatened, they can graze in the same area for hours, rest near water sources, and sometimes even stand very close to one another. This level of social tolerance is unexpected among rhinoceroses, because with an animal this powerful, you would expect constant displays of dominance. But the rhinoceros does not do that. Its power is already present in its very existence. It does not need to display it. At the center of this calm power lies territorial marking behavior. Male rhinoceroses mark their boundaries with dung piles and urine signals. But these marks are not just traces. They are chemical message centers, carrying dense biological information. Information such as which individual passed through, when it passed, its health condition, and its reproductive status is all communicated through these markings. In other words, this animal does not rely on physical force every time it needs to defend its territory. First, it sends a chemical diplomatic message, and most of the time, that message is enough. This calculated approach proves that knowing when to use power is just as important as power itself. Do not forget to like the video and subscribe. We continue. The impact of the white rhinoceros on the ecosystem is perhaps its deepest dimension. This massive animal is an herbivore. It consumes between 50 and 100 kilograms of grass every day. That may sound like nothing more than a large appetite, but its effect on nature is far more important. This level of grazing shortens and thins the grass cover across wide areas. That reduction gives small mammals living in tall grass better visibility, increases hunting efficiency for predators, and prepares the ground for new plant species to germinate. In other words, the rhinoceros does not simply feed. It performs habitat engineering everywhere it goes. Its impact around water sources is equally significant. By regularly using the same watering points, it shapes the soil and makes it easier for other species to access water. Researchers in Uganda observed that rhinoceros watering points gradually turned into small ecological centers. Birds, small mammals, and reptiles all become part of this chain. And at the center of it stands the rhinoceros. Even its dung is a critical part of this cycle. The white rhinoceros brings life to the soil by spreading seeds across wide areas. In some parts of Uganda, the spread of plant species directly overlaps with the movement routes of rhinoceroses. This is not a coincidence. It is the trace of a partnership shaped over millions of years. Uganda holds a very special meaning for this animal. By the middle of the 20th century, the white rhinoceros had almost completely disappeared from Ugandan lands. Poaching and habitat loss pushed this species to the edge of extinction. Then the Ziwa Sanctuary was established. With individuals brought from Kenya, a determined conservation program began, and that program worked. Today, around 35 white rhinoceroses live in Uganda. That number may seem small, but reaching this point from zero is the result of decades of struggle. And this return is not just a conservation story. When rhinoceroses returned to Ziwa, the entire ecosystem of the region began to change. Grazing pressure returned, habitat structures shifted, and some bird species followed these changes and came back to the area. The footsteps of a single animal helped restore balance to an entire ecosystem. But the threat is not over. Across the world, their numbers are only around 17,000 to 18,000. Horn trafficking remains the greatest challenge. The fact that the value of a horn per kilogram can sometimes exceed the value of gold keeps this conservation battle under constant pressure. Now bring everything together. 2,300 kilograms, 50 kilometers per hour, 5 centimeters of armored skin, a horn reaching 150 centimeters, a scent range of 1,500 meters. And behind all this power stands a creature that needs no display, a creature that shapes the world simply by existing. The most powerful animal in Uganda is the white rhinoceros. But even that sentence falls short. It is not just powerful, it is the silent architect of the savannah. The places it passes through change. The places where it stands transform. the places it returns to come back to life. And this extraordinary transformation happens simply by walking, simply by breathing. Across the wide rocky plains of Uganda, this giant is still walking, still leaving its mark, answering to no one, fearing nothing. If you found this file interesting, do not forget to like and subscribe. If you are curious about which country's wild world we will explore in the next file, keep your notifications on. See you next time.